Cool. This is Roland, the one and only Zack Person. Thanks for coming on today, man.
Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Did you just get back from your European run, or have you been in the States for a little while now?
Yeah, we've been back for a minute. We did Europe earlier in the summer. That was a cool run. We went to a lot of new places. We did France for the first time. Didn't know what to expect, but everywhere we went, we're playing these sort of small cap clubs, but everywhere we went, there was at least 100 or so people there, even in our first time visiting some of these places. So it felt good.
Absolutely, man. It's always affirming when you show up somewhere new and you're already being well received, especially in a smaller room where it's like it feels intimate, it feels grateful. And for an album like, tell me the name of the album again. It might get loud. Let's get loud.
That's a great documentary. But
Yeah,
Let's Get
dude,
Loud.
yeah. Let's Get
Yeah,
Loud, which when you listen to it, like it does have some more funk undertones to it than what I would describe as like typical blues rock. Now, when you came to the time of releasing that, did you have to kind of put it in a genre and put it in a lane, or did the folks on like the back end kind of help you put that on it?
well, the folks in the back end were me.
Okay.
um, I mean, I I've never really been a blues like purist. Obviously, I appreciate the blues, and that's a big foundation of my playing. But um, yeah, growing up, I was always the odd person out, like at the blues community events and stuff. I was always a little bit too loud and a little bit too distorted. So I never kind of got fully embraced in that world. I can skate that line a little bit just because I'm playing pentatonic bass guitar, but yeah, I don't know. I've always had like more of an interest in just music in general. Grew up
Yeah.
listening to a lot of Motown, and my mom, she was playing everything from Jill Scott to Prince to Lenny Kravitz to Michael Jackson. So I've always been interested in, or my ears have been more attuned to wider frequencies. The
Yeah.
first solo I memorized was the saxophone solo from just the two of us, Bill Withers. So
Very
I'm like
nice.
7 years old, just you know, you know. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
such a weird walk down too. It's like that really redefines what you can do with a major seventh, like sweep kind of a thing, you know? Uh,
yeah,
I've
totally.
always loved the line that goes between Curtis Mayfield to Prince to Lenny Kravitz. It's like "In and Over Till It's Over" has so much of that reminiscence to me that I never really saw Lenny in that lineage until I listened to what I forget what the name of that album is. Let me look that up.
Is it
Uh,
Let Love Rule? It's the
no, it's
one
not.
with
It's gosh, it has "In and Over Till It's Over" on it. What the name?
mm,
Mama Said. Yes.
Mom said, yeah, yeah. That's the.
Yeah, but
I
that
met.
song in particular, it reminds me so much of what I love about Raspberry Beret and Around the World in a Day and Superfly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I met Lenny or crossed paths with him twice. Once I was maybe 15, and my mom was like, "We're gonna go see Lenny Kravitz at Cynthia Woods Pavilion in Houston, Texas." And we went, and he did a thing. I think he does it every show where he walks through the crowd at the very end on "Let Love Rule." It's just a big, jam sort of thing. The band's on stage, and he's going through and shaking hands and hugging people. And I saw him coming like down our aisle. I'm like, "Oh man!" Like, growing up, my Yahoo News was always the front page of my laptop when I'd open it, and every now and then you'd see kid gets pulled up on stage with whatever, and then they play the solo, and then it goes viral, and I'm like, one of these days that's gonna be me on the Yahoo News homepage.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is my moment, and like I'm like, how do I get his attention? And like what would a guitar player look at? I'm like, I held up a guitar pick. I'm like, this just so silly. And like he comes like sees it, comes over, and he's like, you play? I'm like, yeah. And like I'm like, I would love to play a solo with you. And like he's like, yeah. And meanwhile, people are just pulling on his clothes and stuff, and like screaming women, and And like he's like, oh, I'll be back, and like gets pulled away, and I'm like, just waiting. The concert's clearing out and everything. I'm standing there with my mom. She's like, yeah, I think he's coming back. I'm like, no, just keep waiting. I'm like, anyway, funny.
Did he come back at that point?
No, and I
Okay.
wouldn't expect it. No, sorry, no, he never
Okay.
came. I'm still waiting.
This was like the first personal interaction you had with him. What's the second?
Second one, so living in Austin, I started working with a charity organization called A Chance to Rock, and they give free music lessons to kids in fostering, and they had multiple artists come in and be a part of that as ambassadors to raise awareness for it. People like Adrian Casada from the Black Pumas, and Kathy Valentine, bass player in the Go-Go's. And I ended up meeting Kathy through that. We were supposed to, for one of their events, write a song together. We ended up writing a song called "We Don't Play," which has a crazy attached to it as well. But we ended up recording that song and building a relationship. And early or late last year, Kathy moved back to where her mom's family's from in London. So when we were over there this summer on tour, we ended up crossing paths and we did some shows together. But she got us tickets to one of the festivals in France on our last day over there. Lenny was headlining, and I don't know. It's always weird trying to connect when there's a lot of moving parts and when somebody's in work mode. But I made it all the way to the very back of the stage. Got to watch the concert side stage. His amps blasting. Me and Kingfish, funny enough, he was there too. Yeah, we're just getting
Nice.
blasted in the face from his amps, and he's a great player. Him and oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? His rhythm guitar player.
Oh man, I just saw him on
Greg Ross. Greg
Okay,
Ross.
yeah. Latest did a
Yeah.
post of all like the Polaroids of the band. It's like I never really looked into that dude much, but boy, can he play his ass off. That's cool to get to
Yeah.
hang out with Kingfish. So you ever met him before?
Yeah. Man, well, I'll wrap up this story real quick.
Yeah.
So, I have one of my vinyls with me because I was like, I want to give it to him, just like let him check it out or whatever. And I'm standing at the very back, and like security comes as they're about to clear off the stage, and he's like, "Hey, everybody has to go back." And then somebody's like, "Wait, no, he's cool. He's been here for a while, and he was with somebody so and so he can stay." But they're like, "Well, you got to step 6 feet back," and they're like, and just so you know, he's gonna come through and make a beeline to that bus. No, you're not gonna get to talk to him, but if you're friends with Craig, you can talk to Craig. So, like, sure enough, 6 feet goes past, jumps in the van takes off, and then Craig comes out. I have a minute with him and give him a vinyl. But it's Kingfish, though. We met for the first time maybe it was 2016 or so in Memphis at the IBC's International Blues Challenge. And it was just like one of the late night jams. Everybody's done with their competition stuff and people are just hanging out. And somebody introduced me to him. They're like, "Hey, this is my friend, Kingfish. She's going up next." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And like he gets up there and he has his Les Paul or that custom Les Paul, and like he's playing clean just in the back. I think this is before he really blew up, but and he's just playing quietly, comping chords, and then somebody's like, "All right, you solo," and then he stepped on whatever super distortion thing he had, and it just like feedback and everything, and then he just ripped, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" Like that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my
It's
first impression.
it's always mind-boggling when someone does kind of appear from the back of the room in that way. And when you're at that
Oh,
kind of guitar-centric event, like you really got to pick your spots. You don't want to come out here ripping too hard. And I think for a very capable player like yourself, it's interesting to listen to the album and hear the moments where you have reservation and you have kind of a willingness to say like, well, this is the tastiest version that's going to go on the album for this solo. But in a live setting, it's totally different. And did you really enjoy letting these songs kind of come to life in a live setting over the extent of the tour? Or has it been more limiting than making the album was?
well, my whole approach to that sort of world is like before, like we would back in the day, we make songs and they'd be all in here, and then you get them as best as you could on, on record, and then you put that out, and then you go tour, and they'd evolve, and they're always going to evolve. But like we found that like a year later, after touring on it for a while, we had like, man, they just they were not unrecognizable, but they had just matured. It was like a prepubescent version on the record, and then like like a, going out and fully matured version that we were now living with. So it was like I don't know, it was like looking back at like high school photos and you're like, oh, unless you peaked in high school, then maybe
Dun
you're like,
dun dun. There's
yeah,
some of those out there for sure, man.
yeah,
But it's so nice when you can let the life cycle of the song happen in front of an audience because it does pull something else out of you. That it's been really nice to watch you do some of these acoustic covers over the last couple months because it shows a different side, kind of the beginning of the process of just your hands interacting with the instrument, no amp, no pedals in between. But to let a
yeah,
song go from that iteration to what you and Jake do live is a totally different monster, especially when you give it 6 months a year.
yeah. Well, and now when we do stuff like honestly, like it was just a result of the I guess greater society and economy and the state of the world at the time. We didn't have a rehearsal spot for like 2 years, so like we were rehearsing as much as we could like on the road, and there wasn't any time to really prep. So like song wise, it was pretty fresh when we were actually started to press record. Now we try it, I do multiple like demo versions. So my approach now, especially if I'm trying to break out of a rut recording wise or writing wise, I go back to the sounds that inspired me the most. Like in the beginning, like to be honest, like it's probably something Strat based, just I don't know, Stevie and all that sort of stuff was really big for me early on. So um, a lot of these songs I wrote for this record started off on a Strat with like a fuzz pedal and just having fun with that sound, and then riffs started to come out, and most of the time I learned like if it comes out and it's not what I feel like is something commercially viable, I don't shoot the idea down anymore. I just roll with it and I like let it all out, and then on voice memo or however I'm recording, and then I step away for a while, and then I come back and I'm like, okay, there's something in here, and then I try to condense that or extract something out of that, and then I normally have like a loose idea for a song, and then I come back and I try to cover that and make it better, and then come back. I don't know. I approach it from that aspect of like, okay, I want to do a better cover of this song, and like that's kind of like my draft process because I'm really
Yeah.
good at taking other people's songs and being like, I'm really inspired by this, but like I would want to change this and this and this, so I just do that to myself until I feel like okay, I like where it's at now.
Yeah. Well, there's a really interesting part of the writing process that the muse interacts with you more directly on that first go around. When you find the right tone, when you find the right lyric, whatever it be, lightning in a bottle strikes and you just need to capture. And then you kind of give yourself enough space to let it mature as its own thing and kind of I don't know, shed your expectations of what that is. And then you can come back and, like you said, kind of cover it, rearrange it, be playful with the idea. But you're looking at, the ship in a bottle and you're going in there with your tweezers and you're trying to adjust certain aspects of it. It's really
Right.
interesting, though, that these ideas come off of a different electric rather than like how many songs on the album would you say are written on acoustic?
Mm. It really just depends. I mean, I was I did like I don't know. A lot of the songs have been written on acoustic. Like Muddy Water was started off on acoustic. I think Remnant started off on acoustic, like in a bathroom where it was really echoey. Um,
Always the best
I
vibes. People are like, what's taking you so long? And they're like, I'm writing something, I swear.
yeah. So like I think a bathroom that's echoey, or actually a room with a lot of wood that has windows or natural light or something like that can be really inspiring to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just more less sterile environments that feel good to me, but and mirrors. If there's mirrors around for whatever reason, that helps. I think
I
some of
was
that comes from like practicing, like performing or something like that. Not seriously, but loosely practicing performing on stage, um, and then like getting through a song and then be like, okay, what do I want to happen next? That's how Feel It happened, because um, there's an intro that we always did for Muddy Water, and then we felt like we just wanted it to continue. Like, I feel like this should just go somewhere else. So like, we keep cutting it off and going into the song. And
yeah.
so like a lot of the songs for this album, honestly, I mean, like, I feel like they came out of uh, or at least the latter half of the songs I wrote were coming from a need to have a certain moment happen in the set that we didn't have yet.
That's
You know?
super interesting. So they're almost like interludes that kind of found personality over time. Like, because you say that it's starting off as just an intro, and then I'm looking at Feel It, and it's a 6-minute song. Like this thing really had something else to tell you, and you can feel it every time. You're like, okay, well, we kind of choked it there. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if we want to embrace this section, we got to find out who it is. So when you go
Right.
back and you start to lyrically pair, do you have a bag of loose stanzas that you're tossing at it, or are you looking for it to kind of expose what it is?
Yeah, I'm usually looking for it to expose what it is. I mean, there's some times where like I have a song, like there's one I was working with, the other day that like I originally wrote it kind of like having like a collaboration with Tyler Bryant in mind, because I'm like, this feels like something that would be very much in his world, or we could, it would fit for both of us. But um and we'll see what happens. But when it came to I don't know, I played around with it for myself, and I thought, can I do this by myself? And I'm like, I don't know if this feels like a me song. And so it's just been like sitting like, on a drive. But then came up with a really cool riff. It's actually was inspired by this Dolly Parton cover we did for a tribute show in Austin. It's yeah. And the song is completely unrecognizable. And like whenever we like listen back, we're like, man, we have to do something with that. And like, um, Jake's like, just change the lyrics, man. Just put new lyrics over it. The music is already completely different. Like All Shook Up. I don't know if you have ever heard the version of the All Shook Up, but that music is completely different. And I maybe screwed myself because I,
Because you
made it.
exposed it in that way. Yeah.
Well, no, because yeah, well, just with we can't play it certain things because it's Otis Blackwell's lyrics, but
Mm,
um, um, but yeah, taking trying to figure out new lyrics for this thing, and like I could not shake Dolly Parton's lyrics, like for whatever reason I can't get them out of my head. And like then I was playing with the idea from that other song, like, oh wait, maybe I can just import these lyrics on and like try to fit them in. And like that seemed to work for whatever
yeah.
reason. Like I couldn't think of anything to fit that, but I could easily like take some other set of words and like just try to like edit them to fit that. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
What's
Yeah.
always interesting when it's like there's something about those lyrics that is fitting to it, and to just go and replace them, it's like, well, I haven't found that small snippet of what makes that special to kind of recalibrate what this arrangement is. But I think you touched on something interesting before, and like in the way that you like to collaborate, and like I totally resonate with the idea of like when you're messing around with an idea, sometimes having a mirror to envision yourself playing this in a more visceral way that you can be in like the viewer's perspective. How far do you like to take a song before you turn to Jake, to Tyler, to any of these kind of collaborators in your life to go to the next level with it?
Yeah. Um, you know, I maybe it's a practice thing. I need more reps at it, but in terms of sitting down and coming up with a song from scratch, like on the moment, like let's get together and write, like I haven't been very successful. I mean, the musically I can do that, but in terms of words, I haven't yet been successful. I'm not saying I can't be. But a lot of times I don't know, like I like needed to be quiet and like dead silent, and like me to just have time, just sit and experiment and mess around with stuff. And then like I usually, get, find some inspiration. I'm able to, come up with something cool. And um yeah, the situations when um I've been working with somebody else, it feels like it's hard to, people talk about, you're not writing songs, you're just like listening to the universe and trying to like tune into whatever like radio station frequency happens to be passing by. And then like you like it's kind of like, sometimes your antenna is a little bit stronger, and like you get a little bit of the frequency, like, oh, I can hear that song clear, and it downloads. And like when there's you know anything else, any other sounds or something happening, like, and I'm trying to hear a frequency or something, it could be distracting. It's like cutting interference, you know
Yeah.
you know
If we got two
another
stations picking
chord.
up one idea.
Exactly, another chord or drums or something banging in the background. And it's like, so I feel like I have to, at least like get the first initial download of something, and then like, okay, now let's, see what we can do with this, you know
Yeah. I definitely agree with like it's tough when you have multiple people in the room and you're just trying to channel that thing for the first time, and someone might kind of undermine what's happening with an idea by going that direction. And it's like, well, I'm not ready to let go of the ball. I'm not ready to pass this to you, and you're about to go for the layup and I'm trying to shoot a 3-pointer. You're like, we're trying to do different things here. And it's hard to find the right people for that job. It seems
yeah
like Tyler has a really unique ability to take rough ideas and kind of package them for a commercial sphere, more than he might even do with his own material. When I listen to the Shakedown stuff, it's like this is more classic rock and more progressive than I hear in like a Larkin Poe. But in
mm,
that particular vein, he's willing to digest something and put it on a platter in a particular way than one does with their own material.
yeah yeah when we uh working with him was fun, man. We got together. I sent him some really rough demos because I didn't have I I was living in a tiny apartment, and I could not make any noise. Like I had a new amp, I couldn't even hear what it sounded like unless I went to a rehearsal space and rented time. So like, and like I can't sing quiet. Like I can't sing above a certain note quiet. It just comes
Yeah.
out super loud. So I can't even sing. So like I just like had to like, run some, I don't know. I didn't even have I just ran some crappy DI I had. It didn't even have a good, like a cab sam on it, just like out to, and like, you know, I like pulled some drums from a rehearsal that I had. It was terrible sounding. Like I'm just whispering in my apartment trying to like, I'm like, I hope you can get the idea from this, but don't judge it. And um uh, that's how we did Nothing to Lose. And
Mm.
the next time I had a little bit of a more space, and we did like more fleshed out demos. But um, it was fun to be, or I don't know, be able to have a little bit more time to experiment on the front end. And like for the most part, I had a lot of the song, and ideas structured the way I wanted, and what sounds would come in where and when. Um, but working with Tyler, we were able to, he was able to be really decisive, and that was a really fun thing. When I'm, wondering, is this a good decision or not, or same thing with Jake with the drums. Like it was nice to have a third party be like, yes or no. Like we should do this, you shouldn't do that, or this is good enough, or no, you should do that again. And then he's got a lot of cool gear too. So
Oh
like,
yeah. I mean, that
we
seems like
need
a very
we
rad,
need
chaotic home.
yeah, we're like, we need a sound. And he's like, well, I just got this, crazy new pedal from, UE or whatever the thing is. And like, hey, let's try this, and it's like, oh, cool. I would not have had that sound. And then, man, and his energy is infectious. It's fun. Um, yeah. And it was really kind of him to lend his slide playing um, to the record. I feel like whenever you have a guitar player coming in, to do a record with a guitar player. It's kind of like, what's the dynamic going to be and stuff. And it was really kind when he was like, he's like, so a lot of times I just want to take the guitar and be like, just let me play it, please. And he's like, I don't want to do that now. I don't want to do that. But I had slide parts written for this, or slide ideas for the song. And I thought that they would be a cool way to like coexist on the record. I was like, okay, I'll play the guitar, fingered guitar stuff, but he's such a great slide player. I'm like, please play all the slide, And then he really showcased on Carolina, which was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that song's fantastic, man. That brings up an interesting thing about your playing that I really love, and I don't know how much of this is just out of necessity or if it's how you kind of came up with the strap. But the way you wrap thumb to try to have some of these bass lines that are included, but it also lends itself to the percussive aspects of your playing. The way that even if a note's not being pulled out of a string, you still get the body and the friction of that string. So does that kind of stem from how you've always played, or is that from saying we're going to do this as a two piece, we're going to black keys it, and that's just how we have to make this happen?
Well, I've always played in three pieces for the most part growing up, and so like I think I've always just tried to like get my guitar. Like I think I'm a frustrated guitarist because like I actually probably like hate the limitations of the guitar, but like I don't want to play anything else. So like I've always like, probably like tried to make my guitar as big as possible. And so like, whatever I can do to make this, sound huge. And it's so much to a point where I kind of hit a wall and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not enjoying this at the moment because like I am trying to play, keys on guitar and like, well, it's just, my pedal board was growing and growing. I'm like, well, okay, no, let my guitar be a guitar. Let's just let the guitar sound like a guitar is supposed to sound like, and like figure out some other arrangement stuff or whatever. Like,
Yeah. So
that
what's
was
that
enough.
specifically done to your pedal rig?
It's not huge. I'm looking at it right now. It's maybe, I think this is a 14 by 11 inch board. I don't know. I don't have a lot on there. I mean, I've got going from the input, it goes into a wah. Then there's an octave fuzz pedal. Um, I've got two tube screamers. One is a boost and one is a main drive. A tuner, tremolo, and reverb. Uh, and I do have another octave pedal on there. But
Your tuner
uh,
is deep in that chain. Is there a reason for that?
yeah, I have it after all the drives. So when like, it's creating hiss, I can just mute it and it's dead silent.
Yeah.
Um, I do have a pedal on here. I have two utility pedals. I have actually three, but I just crushed this diddle looper. Thing falls out. This was a utility thing because if I'm switching guitars, um, I can usually just turn on the tremolo and create like a sound and then just press and hold a loop and like it just keeps going and I can go grab a guitar, but there's still mid range happening.
Yeah.
I've got like a vocal pedal on here. Um, just so like I try to get everything condensed to this board. It's one of the Vertex boards that flips up. So I've got
Nice.
my inner unit in there, and my vocal pedal so I can run slap back and stuff. And it's all on the board. And I have a drop pedal, which is really cool.
What
Um,
is that? Like a drop tune?
yeah, so it might sound weird if you're getting the mic, I'll mute the mic so you don't hear the strings real quick. So yeah, it comes in really handy if you're just trying to get weird and do stuff, or if you're, I used to write in a way where I would I would, I wouldn't go for certain things because I'm like, well, I have to bring another guitar, and I'm not able to do that. If I wanted something that was down, um, and now I can, like, write a song that's a half step or a step down, and just click that on and keep the normal guitar I have, and
Yeah.
it's not as
When
much of a burden.
I love seeing you pull on SG because I got to know like why the double cut Les Paul versus an SG, and what's similar and what's different to you when it comes to feeling it on body in stage moments.
Yeah. I was just trying stuff out. I don't know. I my first concert I ever went to was Return to Forever because my stepdad was really into jazz. Um, and so he took me there, but Dweezil Zappa, with Zappa Plays Zappa. They were the opening band. And he had this, SG cherry red SG standard that he was playing that night, and the pickups were reflecting the light, and I remember like that image being burned into my brain, and I'm like, wow, like that's, I don't know, that's rock and roll. And um the first American made guitar I ever like bought was like a $600, I don't know, like really stripped down SG from a Guitar Center, which I then like took apart and got freaked out because I'm like, how am I gonna put this back together? And like
How old are you disassembling this thing?
no, like 16 or so. I'm like, I don't know what I was trying to do, change the pickups. I don't know, but and I learned how to solder then and all that stuff. But I've always liked SGs. But then kind of with Baxter opening the shop, and then he had all the Fender custom shop stuff. So then I was into Strats for a while, but then I wanted more body. So then I was, experimenting with changing the bridge pickups, and then I discovered Telecasters, and I'm like, okay, this is where I want to live. And I'm still a Tele fan, and like, love Teles, and was happy there. And my a buddy I had in Austin, Caleb Grant, we were he approached me one day and he said, "Hey man, I just met somebody at Gibson at the showroom that used to be in Austin. This was beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic." And he's like, "You should go over there and like I want to introduce you. They'll give you a guitar or something, or I'm like, okay." So we go over there, and I'm not super excited because I'm like, I don't want any humbuckers. I'm like, I mean, you have any single coil stuff? And like they gave me it was a custom shop Les Paul Junior double cut, so like very very similar to this one, just double cut.
Yeah.
And I played on that. I recorded Can't Stop Running like on that guitar, and it was amazing. Like I remember sitting there with it forever. Like it was like, you know I've always like appreciated acoustic guitars, and have wanted, to find, something that was really resonant and open, like an acoustic is, but within the electric world, and like that single P90, bridge pickup on, I don't know, it's just so big and like acoustic like, and it was resonating in the chords, which like it felt like I was playing a dreadnought or something like within an electric guitar. And so I loved that. And then my manager at the time, who I no longer work with, he ended up asking me to take that guitar back and trade it out for something black. I don't know, because we were doing a photo shoot. And like, you know after that, like I was like, oh, this guitar sucks, I want to get that Les Paul back. And they didn't have it anymore, and I'm like, so I don't know. It was that was a cool guitar. And like, you know I tried a bunch of stuff. I loaned out a bunch of instruments from them, like SG specials, SG juniors. And I'd like the P90 sound, but I don't know if there was something weird that happened for a few years with the production models, but I was having a lot of issues um, with tuning stability, and like so that's kind of why I kept switching. I'm like, maybe I need a tune-o-matic bridge, or I don't need the wraparound. I tried a bunch of stuff, and then come to realize it's just like, no, it's like those old plastic button tuners aren't. They're if you play really hard, they're probably not going to hold up. It's a I think they keep doing it because it's what the people have asked for. They like we want it like it was, but
Yeah.
like it was is necessarily the best option, but so
Those
I
80s Grovers work so well. They're just heavy
yeah,
as hell. It's like it's crazy how much more of a neck dive that you're gonna get from those guitars. But I get what you're
right.
saying, where folks that are
I
buying
mean,
new
like
Gibsons want to look
see
like
this
old
one,
Gibsons. Yeah, exactly.
Rovers, and you see this one. These are Taylor tuners, I think, on this one. But essentially, it's just if you want, I mean, I don't know. I've gotten lucky, like the Les Paul Special. Sometimes you get a pair that like work out, but they're inconsistent, and that's by design, kind of,
Yeah.
But anyway, like just fast forward, like I tried a bunch of stuff, and then I ended up landing on this for a while, and this was my main one for a minute. I loved this, but then I kind of missed having a neck pickup. So then that's when I like went for the SG Special, and then for whatever reason, this guitar is awesome. It's a 67. The wood is 67. Everything else, for the most part, aside from the frets, has been replaced like in the 70s. It's it's still old, but not
Yeah.
original. And it's an amazing guitar. But I was curious after playing Sean's Les Paul Special, whatever pickups were in that, it was like so bright. I think it was because it was like a 50s sort of like wind or something, maybe. I don't know. So I wanted to experiment with that, and I tried out the Les Paul Special for a while. That guitar is awesome. I can't
Is that the
really
cherry
ask.
double cut?
Yeah, the cherry double cut.
Okay.
It sounds great. Um, I don't know what I was looking for. I guess it still wasn't exactly what I wanted for in the neck. I wanted something really weak in the neck, so I could get as close to like a Stratty sort of tone out of the neck pickup. Because like I set my guitars up for the bridge pickup because I pretty much only 95% of the time I'm here, and
Yeah.
so that makes the neck really dark. So I need something that's like really weak and low output. I have a telly around that I could demonstrate because I have a telly with a really hot bridge pickup. And it's a humbucker, super like crazy Seymour Duncan humbucker, and that thing is crazy. So when I set it up for that, and then I switched to the neck, I don't know. It's I could show it to you if you want.
Yeah,
But
please. And
yeah,
when you make that kind of dramatic switch, do you end up going to strictly the neck pickup, or do you kind of go in the middle and start to blend a little bit and kind of leave the touch there?
it's mainly when I want to get like a I don't know a really drastic sound. Like, all right, I guess we can edit this out. That little
Yeah, no, go,
pause.
go, yeah, do your thing.
Once
I don't edit
it's
much
good.
on this show, but they can wait it out.
Yeah, sing a
And again,
song.
friends, you got to listen to the Let's Get Loud album from Zack Person. It's really incredible. It's heavy, so I recommend it loud. It's the only way to make it happen. Is the vinyl still available, Zach? I'll just look it up myself. I think he's out of earshot. Pretty sure it is, though.
All right.
Yes, it looks like the vinyl is still available, so go get the vinyl, everybody.
Here we are. Here's the Franken telly. It's wild looking, but really special. One of my favorite guitarists is a guy named Dave Scher out of Austin, Texas, and he's been playing with Eric Johnson, playing rhythm and lead guitar, which says a lot because
Yeah.
Eric kind of has both of those bases covered. But Dave Scher, if you ever get a second to check him out, he's a phenomenal player. One of my favorites. Actually, my favorite guitarist.
What gauge do you use? Those things sound heavy, brother.
He said, "This sounds heavy."
Yeah, those sound like
These are tens. They're just tens.
They're only okay. Word.
So how's the level on that? Is that good?
It's
Is
cool.
it peaking or anything? So
No,
yeah,
that's
you can essentially get like big sort of chordal stuff there, but then as soon as you switch to the neck, it gets really thin, and you get I can't really hear actually. The guitar's super low on the monitor. It sounds super stratty, you know?
yeah.
So I'm trying to. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm trying to get that out of the Gibsons because I love the way the Bridge P90 sounds, and I feel like, you know, it is a single coil, so I feel like if you get a really really weak, you know, P90, you should be able to get, you know, at least that effect or getting somewhere close to that sort of, you know, territory.
Yeah, I love the way you rake against again, like your muted strings. Like it has so much of the person behind it. Not to cheese on your last name, but it's like that's like the more human side of the playing. That when you listen to the greatest guitar heroes like an Eric Johnson, it's like really it's all in the melodic side of it. But it's like no, I'm more of a what's the danceable aspect of this, and the rake and the percussion. This really screams in that.
No,
So
thanks, man. Yeah.
in your in-ears setup, when you go for that dramatic switch and that volume drop, do you have anything to kind of regulate? Are you like compressing heavy on your guitar and your headphones, or are you just prepared for that mentally?
It's not that drastic of a drop when I mean, because I mean I'm running my amps pretty loud, so like, you know, one is just like the bridge, and essentially like it's maybe the difference between like stepping on a boost pedal to get like
Mm,
over the, you know, the drums for a solo, except it's like a step down, you know. And I'm only really doing that sort of neck stuff when it's like, you know, a really quiet section and I just want, you know, something that sounds really, you know, something really touch sensitive.
yeah.
I don't really, I mean, and with more gain, I feel like it kind of levels it out. I don't know if there's too much of a drop, you know, between like I guess there's a little bit. I don't know. It doesn't. It doesn't ever feel like it's dropping out that much when I'm
Yeah.
playing live.
And if you have a good engineer, it's not like it's going to be an issue at all. But it's an interesting kind of recalibration of the mind when you have the amp kind of dialed in for your bridge pickup and you have all this meat sitting there. And then you come up and if you do have it dialed, if you do have a little bit lower output, like I can definitely hear what you're saying. I've never been in that kind of class. I sit on the neck pickup 90% of the time. And then when I go to the bridge, I'm like, well, something's not right here, you know? So it's an
Mm,
interesting way to recalibrate the setup.
yeah, I don't know. I guess I played for so long just on that single pickup junior that like, and I've done so much acoustic playing in my life that I just like a big, you know, hearty sort of like, I don't know, guitar sound that's like the sound, you know, and then like I can pull in another thing if I want, but like I kind of just like to have a bunch of gain on tap and use my volume knob to get the different voices that I want. And like I said, I just really crap. The bridge pickup has the most bite to it.
Hope I lost you for a second here, Zach.
Oh, we dropped out for a second. Oh, there we go. It
Yeah.
feels like the best thing to base everything around. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just kind of live there.
Yeah. Well, and how do you dial your amp accordingly to that? Do you kind of roll treble back on there? Or are you kind of like leave it all at 5 type of person?
I try to leave it as flat as possible, and that's because mainly like I played two rocks for a while. I ended up stumbling into, you know, that world with some folks, and um, you know, I kind of got out of that world and went to the modeling world for a minute, and I was like, I don't like that as much. And then I went back to the tube amp world, but by then I didn't have that relationship. It wasn't as strong anymore, and so I just got Fender amps and played on those for a while. And then like experimented, like people try to get me into like some heavier gain amps. I played orange amps for a while, and those, I love orange amps. But then I'm like, man, I'm basing my whole rig around this. And as soon as we do a fly date somewhere, all I've got is a Hot Rod Deluxe, a clean Fender amp. Like, what am I going to do with that? You know, with the rig I have built for this, you know, dirty, you know, almost fuzz in an amp sort of sound. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to like, I'm going to try to get like the best sound I can out of the pedal board. And then just find a really good tube amp platform that I can get to just clean edge of breakup and like use that as my bass, and then use the pedal as all my seasoning. And that's kind of, you know, what I'm going to rock with, because whatever, I can always get like a big clean amp, you know, that, you know, I can push to the edge a little bit wherever I go, whether that's a Fender amp or whatever. Right now, I was really honored to be able to work with Marshall amps, and it hasn't gotten here yet. It's still in shipping, but I have a JTM 45 on the way. But that's
Very nice.
basically a big Fender Bassman, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't intend on, you know, trying. I mean, that's a pretty clean amp, you know. I don't intend on like trying to get my distortion out of it. I'm going to push it, you know, to the edge, and then just push it over the edge with this stuff.
Yeah.
But
Do you
like I
ever
said, you can use
attenuate to
it.
get that?
Not really. I don't. I mean, the JTM 45 is, it's like a like a 30-ish, something in that 30 to 40 watts range. My
Yeah.
super reverb, you know, is what, I think that's 40 watts. So like, I don't think it's really an issue with anything like that wattage. You know, if I was
Yeah.
playing like a somewhere in that 60, like a twin, I don't know, 60 to 100 watt range, it might be a little bit more difficult,
Yeah.
but
I don't know. That super gets loud, man. That thing bumps.
it does get loud.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You have people like Eddie 9 Volt who are cranking it every night. You know,
Yeah.
Chris Kingfish is loud. You know, I was in a recording session with him about a year ago, and like, you know, I was playing at a reasonable volume, and like, you know, his amp, they're like, you know, I mean, he was cranked. You could hear it like through the control room. It's like, you know, I think it just depends on like what people's expectations are, you know, for the show. If they know they're going to get that, you know, then it's probably fine.
Yeah.
And then if you control your frequencies, like somebody like Kingfish too, he's also playing with a very dark tone, so there's not a lot of offending frequencies. You know, the
Mhm.
pain stuff isn't, you know, it's not there. It's the treble's very backed off.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think people love that feeling of like the air really being pushed in a room. It's just where it gets pushed from, and can the room kind of handle that? It's like if your front of house can handle you being dimed, you should probably go for it. I would
yeah,
love to hear you talk about going from the modeling world back into analog. Was there anything that you missed on the modeling side? Or was it like, okay, now I kind of need to rediscover my tone again because none of this, even though practical, was fulfilling what you needed?
yeah. So I got into it. Like, I saw people messing with, you know, Kemper for a while, and then um, I kind of stumbled into Helix when that was getting popular. So I got the big Helix board, and at that time, I think I sold a lot of my tube amps. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I was just kind of like, I dove like all the way in. I'm like, I'm going full into the modeling, and we got this like right before like a big show we had, and like I was, you know, looking at the manual trying to figure this out. Spent hours getting everything the way I wanted it to sound, and then took it out to the, you know, this big gig. And like, actually we did a few small shows, but then we did a big show, and it was on a big stage and a very wide stage. So the front of house, the front fill speakers are like way over at the edges. And then everybody else, it was live drums, and that was the biggest band I had. I think it was like a 4 or 5 piece, and like everybody else had amps, but I was doing the Helix thing. And so the first strike was during sound check. You know, the PA wasn't on yet, but everybody's noodling, warming up, getting their sounds, and I'm plugged in and I can't hear anything. I'm just having to wait. I'm like, I want to get the feeling good. And then during the show or after the show, one of my favorite things to do, after we're back at the hotel or whatever, home, you know, take a shower and sit back and then go scroll through, wonder if anybody like post any clips from the show, like, what stories are there. And I'm like looking at all these Instagram stories, and it's just like, all the people at the very front of the stage. Like I said, the PA was way out there. So there's all this space in the middle, and everybody that was right at the front, taking videos. It's just like me, like wailing and doing all these movements and soloing, but you can't hear anything because there's no front field speakers, and the PA is way over there. So it's just like dead sound. I'm just miming it, basically in these videos. And I'm like, I don't like that,
Yeah.
Um,
That don't
I
sit
mean,
right.
yeah. And then we tried to do some small shows, where we showed up to do this like community show, and like they didn't have any monitors at all, and they had like no subs. So like when this is when we started running the bass, our bass tracks and stuff. It's like, all right, so now like it's just two little PA stands for vocals basically, and then we're supposed to run our bass and all that through there, and then my modeling is supposed to go through there. So, and it's the drums are almost as loud as that little PA system. So really, we're just getting drums and like and a little, I don't know, it was a mess. Like I had to go back home. I had to go back, and like borrow some stuff from people to make that show work. We had time to do it, fortunately, but it was kind of a realization that it's like, okay, if you are touring really big venues that have really great sound, and you have a sound engineer that knows how to mix you guys for the front of house, you can probably get away with modeling if you want to in a live situation, because the person is going to mix you at the right level for the front to be able to feel it. And then the other part is that when you're in a bigger room, bigger venue, people are getting less of the stage. So it doesn't really, most of the mix is happening here. If you're at a festival, you're at ACL festival or something like that, Coachella, they're not really hearing the drums on the stage as much. They're getting the mix from the PA. So it doesn't really matter as much. But when
Yeah.
you're in like a 100 cap, 200, 300, 500 cap room, it's like 50% what's on stage and maybe 50% what's in the PA. And if you have live drums and you don't have, coming from off the stage and people are feeling that, and then you only have, guitar coming from like up here, it's a weird dynamic. It's different
Yeah.
if you're like a 12-piece band, backing a pop artist, like, yeah, pop it, because then you're just playing parts and it's not as much. But when people are here to hear like a rock band and be kind of hit with that sound, it's weird if it's just drums. And and like even with bass, we used to run all our bass through just the PA, and that was weird. It's not as much if it was a big venue, but especially in small rooms where the subs are non-existent, or even like the Neon Rooster, like there's no subs there,
Yeah.
um or they're tiny, like that was weird. So now we have amps on stage plus a bass amp plus the drums, and we don't travel with our own sound person. So before the PA is on, I try to do it as quick as possible, mix what's coming off the stage the right way. So I'll go stand at the very front of the stage, or like step off if a chord is long enough, and like get the guitars, drums, everything balanced coming up the front, and then they can't really mess it up from there on. And people are like, dude, I barely have any guitar in the PA because I'm getting so much from the stage. I'm like, well, yes, because you don't know our music, so I'm helping you out. I'm trying to mix it, for the room. Like I don't really want the direct mic sound necessarily, in this room anyway. I like the ambient guitar spreading. Um, uh, so yeah, like
Yeah.
we try to.
Well, it's definitely a different mood. When you're running it to a bass amp, is that a dual output coming from your pedal board, or is that coming from the pad that Jake's running?
We started off doing the dual output, and I was looping bass and all that stuff, and we could do it, but it wasn't fun because I wasn't able to just play guitar. I was having to all too many responsibilities. And so
For sure.
uh, I was just like, man, I'm like, let's figure out, like, let's just run a bass track and, like, you know, that'll free me up to do it, just have fun playing guitar again. And like, we tried a lot of different ways of doing that. And like, there's sometimes when it's me with an octave pedal on, if we're doing like, uh, we might be doing a jam section and it's just me and Jake going like, and I'm running that sort of like bassy effect. Um, and then he also has like sting notes and stuff that he can hit. He has a keyboard over there that he runs that he can do transitions and pads and stuff. So we do some of that stuff live. But then, like, when we're in the meat of the song, it's my P bass, that bass right there, like, that's recorded. Um, and like the way we record that is like we like literally, I mean, like we'll set up, in here in the room and like press record in Logic and just play the song down like we would live, like if I was the live bass player. And like we don't edit it too much. I mean, like we try to let it feel live with all the slides and stuff, and like
Yeah.
that helps it feel real. So yeah, when we're in the meat of the song, he triggers it and everything, and we got a click going so we can stay with it. And sometimes that click, we build it out to where it slows down at certain points to make it more dynamic, and then that runs through the bass amp, and it literally feels like there's a bass player back there.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So
That's
it
awesome.
works for
It's
now.
nice. Yeah. And to come to that compromise that at least there's not one person running it. You both have some flexibility of how this can kind of fill transitions and how you can catch that energy of, no, we want to go have some fun here for a second. We got a little breakout time. Let's get a little strange with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Was there anything from your modeling days that you missed when it came to building an analog board?
Sorry, yeah, you did ask that. Um, Man, I don't think so. So I went from that modeling incident to like going back to tube amps because I'm like, I don't. Well, actually, no. I tried the FR speaker, and like honestly, it just wouldn't get loud enough. We were like playing some shows, and I'm like trying to keep up with the drums, and like it's maxed out, and it's sounding like crap now because it's like maxed out. And I'm like, okay, I'm carrying this thing around. I might as well have an amp. Like it doesn't make sense. The whole point is not. Um, and like the only reason I brought that is because, like I said, the venues weren't adequate. Like they, even if it was a big venue, maybe they didn't have front fill speakers to solve, the people standing right in front of the stage. So I'm like, okay, I need my own speaker. And like again, like I said, at that point, you might as well have an amp. Um, I mean, some people could say that like the reliability, not having to worry about the tubes and all that stuff, maybe, but I was like, I'm gonna go back to amps, and so I did that, and I had a compromise for a minute. Even I know Larkin Poe does this, where half their board is analog, half of it is HX effects. So they're not using the modeling part of it. I think they use a Strymon Iridium as
Yeah.
a cab synth, and that's running out to the PA in case their amp cuts off. They still have something coming out that's has some simulation on it. But they use the HX effects for like all their delays and tremolos and reverbs and flangers, all that sort of stuff. So I did that, and again, it was right before another big show. Same organization with Amazon. We were like playing another show for Amazon. I had a drive pedal. I had a wireless, a drive pedal, just one, I think, and then I had the HX effects because I was like, I dig all these effects except for the drive. That didn't sound right to me than the modeling one, at least coming out of an amp. So we did this really weird setup. We came in late at night, set up, and we had an early morning performance. So we sound checked. Everything was great. I unplugged everything from, I'm like, in case there's a power surge overnight, I don't want anything weird happening. So I unplugged everything. We come back maybe 7 hours later to do this morning performance. It was a corporate sort of thing. And like, I plug everything back in and the HX effects won't turn on. And like, we were about to play to like, 8,000 Amazon employees, and like it's 9 a.m, and I'm just trying to like troubleshoot. Nothing's working. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna pull the amp a little bit closer so I can go back and turn the reverb up and down. And like, luckily, I do have one drive pedal um, that I can use. So I just did the whole gig. I think it was a Nobles ODR1. It didn't have a lot of gain on it, but I just did the whole show like that. Luckily, I was playing a guitar that had humbuckers at that point. So that was pushing and giving me a little bit more compression. But after that, I'm like, I don't know that I want to rely on this digital, like on this computer, this sensitive computer in my live
Yeah.
show, unless I have two of them, I can drop in and replace. And like, I just went back to pedals at that point. I'm like, if one of these pedals goes down, I still have all the rest of them, and like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to be reliant on pedals to play my show, but like a lot of this stuff is, creates atmosphere and like, I mean, we can play all these songs without all the effects, but we're competing against synths and everything that you hear in modern music. So like, I realized I came to a point where I kind of found peace with using a lot of effects and stuff. It's like, okay, this is just extra production because I don't have a keyboard player. Like if I had a big band that could do all the stuff, I could probably just show up with like one drive pedal and plug a cable into that and straight into the amp. But I don't have keys and another guitar player and all this sort of stuff. So I'm adding production to the show.
Yeah. In an
Production
ideal
value.
setting, would it be that kind of 5-piece bass, keys, rhythm guitar?
I think so. I think I would love to get to that at a certain point. Uh, yeah, I would love that. But
Yeah. And is
I
that
think
just about finding the right bandmates, or is it like trying to stay skinny at this growing point in the career?
both. I want to find the right people that I can like. I hate having to cut end relationships with folks because something doesn't work out. I don't like that. And like, so yeah, trying to find the people where I'm like, this feels great. Even with management, like my current manager was like, I took 2 years to find somebody because like I wanted to find somebody that I'm like, I like you. Like, had a friend that said, if you don't want to go on vacation, with somebody, and you have a choice, like don't, work with them. And like, I don't know, you can take that loosely, but like I wanted to find people that I'm like, I enjoy, being around this person, and like I like working with them. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, want to work together. Like I've looked at all the red flags. I've looked at all the potential future red flags, and I don't see anything. And like, yeah, I want to sign up with you for long term. Like that's kind of my goal because I want to I want to be loyal to the folks that jump in and start. We work together early, and like hopefully we can just stick together for the long run. That's kind of like my ideal situation, and so yeah, I want to
Yeah.
find people that like I'm going to be playing with for. I mean, ideally, I would love if I could find the people that I'd be playing with for the rest of my life and like, stick with those folks. But also too, like, yeah, keeping it skinny, it's a lot easier to say yes to a lot of things because like, you know, a lot of opportunities just at the current state of the world, like the money's getting smaller and smaller. And so, we're able to say yes to a lot more, which is more important. I don't know. I think it's more important right now than having a live bass player on stage. We can still go. I can still go present myself in the music, you know, um, about the same. It's not
Yeah.
the same, obviously, but I can, show what I'm about, and people can get the vibe and enjoy the show and see the guitar playing, see the drums, and they can get it with what we are presenting on stage now. The bass player and the other stuff will allow us to stretch out and do more weird stuff. But right now, we're able to, Jake is able to be able to, commit to like just playing with me, like for the most part full time because, you know, there's more to go around, and like, um, I like having the consistency more so, than calling somebody up and can you learn these songs? Can you learn these songs? And constantly having that. I did that in the past and it's stressful. you
It,
know.
it, it definitely is. Well, I think there's one of the things I love most is solo artists like yourself, where it's like if someone called and said, "Here's an acoustic, can you play us these songs?" It would still be there. There's no interruption in that verse when you do it to the band. It's like, Well, it can't be really achieved with one person. Now, is it more fun when it can be you and Jake, when it can be you and a band that's been playing together for years? It's like, yeah, that kind of flexibility in the ebb and flow, that's what keeps it fun. And you kind of touched on like, I don't know if it's kind of like falling out of love with the show or with the instrument, but like at this stage of your career and the amount of pressure and the amount of time that goes into making the show, booking the gigs, getting out to that, how do you make sure that you're still having a good time and kind of prioritizing that for the audience sake?
Yeah. Well, I will say real quick too, like I've seen a lot of your looping stuff, and like I think you pull it off really, really well. I was watching something
Thanks.
yesterday, and like I love what your approach to the looping solo stuff. It feels really cool.
And it's a lonely endeavor, It's it's a
Yeah,
love language of the guys where it's like, I love the way you interpret this. Now this is me trying to recreate that on my own.
yeah. And speaking to that, like I use the shaker. This was a tip from the guy that mixed my album, a longtime friend, Brandon McLeod. He said this is the best shaker you'll ever get. He's like, get a Walgreens or CVS pill bottle and put rice in it. And he's like, that's the best shaker. You don't have to EQ it hardly. And I brought that up because live I usually do, if I'm doing a looper thing, I'm using this as my shaker. But
That's brilliant.
yeah. So like to answer your question about what was your question again?
How do you make sure that you're still enjoying
Right.
yourself when
Right.
there's all this build up to the show?
Yeah. I feel like I squashed that, demon a long time ago because like I found that there were, two sides of the music industry and like, or maybe the entertainment industry. I found there was like a Hollywood sector of music. This was very commercial. And then there was a, I don't know, the actual on the ground, like, side of music, the more earthy, organic, I don't know, side of things. And for a minute, I kind of started to despise the Hollywood side, but now I think now that I know what it is, and like I can appreciate, obviously both. And so like for instance, when I went to Idol, American Idol, like I got exposed to like I don't know, all the super squeaky clean show business part of music, and that was a cool experience. But like I tried to live there and live in that world for a while, and I don't know, I kind of fell out of love with the music I was doing because I was meeting like all these people, and they're like, less guitar, definitely like cut the guitar solos, like, it was just a very, very sterile, economical, like, I mean, money wise, like approach to music. And so I started like, yeah, filtering my music to meet what I thought, that sort of world wanted. Um, but then when we go out and play shows, I just wanted to play Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix covers because that was what was fun to me and what was inspiring to me. And, I think the audience could tell, like, and then I go to ACL 2019, I think, and Greta Van Fleet is playing. And like, that can't be any more the opposite direction than, what I was, being exposed to. And like, I'm like, they're doing the thing that I've like loved and been doing like my whole life. The industry, the Hollywood entertainment side of, music was like, oh no, you can't do that. Like that's, it's just going to get lost on people, um, and I'm like, people are eating this up. And I'm like, that's what I'm good at. I can do that. Um, so then I just started writing that way. I started writing songs that could replace. I'm like, okay, we got a song, a rock and roll by, like, Led Zeppelin. Let's write a song that can replace that sort of energy in the set. And like, I started writing songs that, I wanted to play and were inspiring and felt like that, all the covers I wanted to play. And then I started having fun again. Because, before, again, I was just writing stuff and making music to like, reach a certain status or goal or, level of the industry. And like, I think if you're doing that, if you reach that point where you're trying to hit, you reach that mark, you'll realize it's like, oh, that didn't make me happy because I wasn't happy doing, with what I was doing. I thought hitting this mark would make me happy, but I'm not. And like you kind of have to, you got to find your happiness in what you're doing in the process of doing it. You know, the first big show
Absolutely.
we played, I realized I'm like, man, like this was we played. I don't know. This was like a taste of like what it would be, and like it wasn't very much different experience. We still loaded up our stuff, brought it on the stage, sound check, all that stuff was the same. There was just more people there, and maybe a nicer green room spread or something. But I'm like, man, if I don't enjoy doing like, you know, playing at the little dive bar or playing in the hotel where to be like, I'm not gonna, love it. So I basically figured that out, and now literally I can play. I mean, I don't like it if the environment, if I'm doing something weird and it's like an environment that's gross or something like that. But I can pretty much play anywhere and like get lost in what I'm doing and have so much fun and like, you know, uh, that translates to whatever stage, whatever format I'm playing in, how many people I'm playing with. I think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that really comes across in your show, but also you personally, is like if someone listens to you play, it's like I'd like to sit down with that guy. You have an approachability and a love for the thing that you share in a way that makes people feel like they have more permission to enjoy it. And that's one of the things that since we've gotten to meet and watching all the things you're doing online, it's like it's easy to celebrate a good person doing the thing that they're called to do at higher and higher levels. So just getting to sit down with you today means a lot to me, man. And I love every second of watching you get to kick the door in and show more
Mhm.
people what it's like to have what I would describe as the new guitar gods era. It's like I really do see you taking it to that next level where guys like Kingfish can take on the blues, and you can show people what the new level of guitar player rock and roll can be. And I think it's just going to be an upward journey from here, man.
Thank you. It means a lot. I appreciate you.
Well,
Um,
hell yeah, man.
and
Well, we got
likewise,
to talk
man.
about when you're
It's been
coming to
great to meet you.
Cincinnati. You got to
Yes,
come to
absolutely.
Cincinnati soon, man.
I got to redeem Cincinnati after
Okay,
that
all right.
that that one gig with yeah.
Yeah,
I told you. But
good. I got the right room for you. You just let me know when you want to come up, and we'll make it happen.
yes, man, heck yeah. And then thanks again for letting me sit in North Carolina. That was fun. Thanks for
Dude,
letting me.
nothing's made me want to amp more again is when you rolled that super in there, and it's just like, whoo, the room took off, and I was like, God damn, I gotta change my rig again, man. I've been thinking about tube amps since then. It's like I
Oh
was
man,
borrowing Derek's, I think it was just Princeton that day, but I had that thing on low volume and doing the modeler thing. And I'm like, oh
yeah.
no, dude, this guy just came in burning and like loving every second of that. But it's like, oh, it's got me rethinking damn near everything about my setup.
The modeling thing is I don't think I ever fully answered your question, but the one thing I liked about modeling, it helped me to be honest, because like I finally figured out, how you can put the mic placement, you can figure out where you want the mic, how many inches away. I never considered that in a live format, and I was like, huh. I'm like, I guess what's happening here really influences. I'm like, oh, and people are hearing that out of the speakers. I'm like, ooh, my guitar is way too bright, because I was just shooting it at my legs. I'm like trying to hear it, and like it really helped me understand tone and how that works coming out of the speakers and how it interacts with the mic. So it was good for me to do that, and I still think modeling is great. Um, in the certain instances, it just depends on what you're trying to do. And for me, like I just need to mostly like okay, I could do modeling live if I had, like I said, if we were playing consistent size venues where you could plan for it, and I had a front of house person, the only thing I'd be missing is like production. But you could throw some fake amps on stage to make it look full, but sound wise, you could make it happen. Put a lot in the monitors and stuff, and like then you get feedback loop happening, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But my shows are too inconsistent to be able to plan for what modeling needs for me live, so I had to
Yeah.
stick with
What
the amps for now.
I think you hit the nail on the head too, where it's like when you bring out an amp, you've controlled most of the chain here. And there's a color and a punch that comes along with that, that the moment that you hand it to front of house, they can go and scoop whatever, they can do whatever, they can change where they place the mic, and that doesn't really involve you. And you need to control for your own quality, especially when you're doing things at your level where it's like we could be in theaters, we could be in a small stadium gig, we could be in a borderline 100-seater. It's like between all those, there's so much variance that you might as well make this a controlled loop for as much as you
Yeah.
can. And you're definitely right. And it reminds you of how important the pursuit of tone is. Because when it's not there, you can tell. When it is there, it's hard to put your finger on why. And so there was a
Yeah.
lot of question of the why walking away from that gig. Uh, but also, when you have another guitar player sit in to jam, it's for me, it evoked a lot of that feeling of just enjoying it too. It's like this moment will not last forever. Yeah, we get it on video, and that's fun as fuck to watch. But there's nothing like having well, we barely talked about what's going to go on here. Let's just walk them out and see how this thing gets burning. And it got burning.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it was fun. And
Yeah.
I will say, like this is a last piece of advice that I think, in considering all the different volumes or venues and places you might, go, big rooms, small rooms, I think you only need an amp that can keep up with your drummer. I think that's as loud of an amp as you need these days.
That's really good advice. That's on
I,
the
I
nose.
don't think you need a 100-watt amp anymore. I can't. No, I can't even imagine. You just need something that can dynamically keep up with however loud your drummer is, because you don't ever need to be necessarily any louder than that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're
And you
trying to
shouldn't
you
have to
go for a
compete,
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
having that dynamic between the two of you that's natural. Now we can complement. But if one of you is getting buried by the other, it's like, there's not a lot of room to elevate this.
right, right.
Cool. Well, on the
So,
way out, is there anything that you want to promote? Anything that you got coming up? Any places that people need to be following you at?
yeah, just follow on mainly Instagram. Go stream, get those streams up on Spotify, and I'm working on getting a YouTube channel. I have some ideas for some things. Just next year, I want to kick off something. I got the new place, new studio that I'm set up in, and want to make a bunch of content. It's gonna be cool. And I've been working with Rhett Scholl since I've been here in Atlanta, and we have a couple cool videos. I mean, we've been staggering out some this year, but we're gonna be doing some more stuff, more content together coming up too. So just stick around for that.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's get loud. Available now. Get the vinyl. Just get the vinyl. It's the best way to do it. Highly recommend. And make sure you catch them live. That's Zack Person, everybody. Thanks for taking the time, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Peace out.